Hey everybody, welcome to Shaper Sessions. Today we're going to be working on a commercial veneer inlay project, and we're going to teach you everything you need to know, from the tools you need to cut it, to even providing the files for the project itself. Well, Ramon did.
Yeah. So don't forget to like and subscribe. Every other Thursday, we're live at shapertools.com/sessions. You can sign up to get reminders. We go over all sorts of different projects. But today, we're going to jump into this marquetry project.
Enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name is Jake.
And I'm Sean.
And today we're doing one of my favorite topics. We're doing veneer inlay.
It's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
If you haven't done this before, you're in for a treat. Jake and Ramon have prepared quite the show.
Yeah. Big shout out to Ramon Valdez, friend of Shaper. He created the project that we're going to be working on today. It is a Penrose Triangle that is not only mind-bending, but uses a bunch of different species of wood to come together to create a really interesting inlay. And it is easy to cut, and is actually called an easy inlay project on Shaper Hub. But if you're anything like me, starting with veneer inlay felt kind of daunting, like I didn't really know where to start. This whole process that we're about to go through today makes it very easy, very approachable, and hopefully after today you will feel confident moving forward and let your imagination run free and start inlaying some veneer.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible once you learn a couple tricks, and we're going to show them now.
Yeah. Reminder to everyone, this is a totally live show, so this is your opportunity to get in those questions. Use that chat box. I believe Ramon will be in the chat as well.
I'm sure he will be.
I hope he is. So ask him some questions. Ted will be in the chat answering any questions. All the juicy ones will get saved till the end for our Q&A section, where we will answer them live and demonstrate them as needed.
Yep.
We got Goose up on the roost. I think we're ready to go.
Let's do it.
Okay. Also we do giveaways. So
yeah, so you guys stick around to the end, but once we get through the show, do some good giveaways. You'll fill out a questionnaire throughout the show, and you'll be entered to win.
Yeah. All right. I always like to start off by making at least a little bit of sawdust while we wait for people to filter in. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to cut one of my pieces out here.
Projects ranging from marquetry to joinery to cutting templates, kind of all the things you would want to know once you get into the Origin system. Jake here is just cutting a small shape route. So we're going to get into the details of all the specifics of what he's doing, but in general, all you have to do when you're driving Origin, if you're not accustomed to it or you don't own Origin yet, is you just move Origin around. You have a 1/2 inch of correction, and Origin does the rest. So, with a quick cut like this, you can actually get a perfect cut for veneer inlay just by hand.
And the show just started, and I already made my first mistake.
I
love that.
Well, maybe we'll get it done early this time.
So this project comes in relatively small, and I wanted to bump it up to be just a little bit wider to fit on our panel. So we're going to use a universal scale for all the parts. That is a multiplier across all the pieces so that it will still come together just fine. So I didn't do that.
Yeah, so it's not really a bug per se. It's actually talking about some of the flexibility on Origin. So, when you build a file, you can make it any size you want, and then on tool, when you copy it or you import that file, you can actually scale it up or down as much as you want. So mathematically, the way these files are represented allows you to basically blow them up or shrink them down with no loss in precision. And so, yeah, you can just say, I want a 75% version of this. I want a 2x. I want a, whatever. Type it right in, and then you'll get a preview of how big it's changed.
Yeah. We worked out the math. I just want to make this a little bit bigger. So we're, one, making sure that the width and height are linked and multiplying it by 1.2. Done. Bumps it up just a little bit to fit better into our setup. All right, let me buzz that out again.
Yeah, so because we didn't really get to it while I was doing, you can see that big circle, and anything in that circle can automatically be cut by origin. So as long as Jake's roughly in the right spot, the bit will actually move to the right area and give him a clean cut. You can see the bit's actually represented as that little dot. And so if you'll watch when he comes around this corner, it'll kind of like, he's moving the tool, but it'll stay on the line.
All right. It's going to be a lot of excess vacuuming today because I want to try to keep this surface clean. But there we go. Now, for me, when this was all just an idea, the idea of cutting thin commercial veneer, which is a 42nd of an inch thick, it's a fragile thing.
It's quite tough. And, you know, years ago, me and Ramon actually went down the path of, you know, Ramon came to me and said, hey, I think Origin could do some really cool stuff with marquetry, stuff that you can do by hand with hand-based marquetry, some stuff you can't. I'd like to try it out and see what we can do. And so we built a couple things back and forth, and the biggest thing we found was that this really thin veneer, keeping it attached when you're cutting, keeping it attached when you fully cut, that is the hardest part of this whole process. And so me and Ramon, actually, we'll show it later in the show. We had a big project Ramon was working on, essentially a whole door veneer. And it was, you know, a pretty large project. We probably should have started a little smaller, but we found a lot of these like kind of little tricks of the trade. You know, you'll see Jake's actually got a kind of an interesting dental tool right now to just clean out these things. So there's all these little tools that we found along the way. But really the big one is, how do you keep it down? And we have the double-sided tape that we sell in our store that's great. If you've used it before, it works really good on almost anything. It does not work good on this thin veneer because it's too strong. Yeah. And so when you go to peel it up, it's breaking. It's, you know, it's just too much. And so me and Ramon went down this path. We almost gave up because we couldn't really figure out how it was going to work. And then Ramon saved the day with this special can that we'll talk about in a second.
Yeah. So I'm going to pry this up, try to get some of the dust, just to be able to show you the level of detail. So this is when that thin, sharp, flexible scraper is really going to come into play, because you can't just peel this stuff up. You got to wedge something underneath it, or else it's going to just destroy itself, which this is extra, so that's okay. But when we're talking about our parts, we want to be very ginger. Preserve all our nice, crisp, sharp corners.
Yeah, it's good to scoop with the grain on this, because if you go against it, it'll normally chip out those corners.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, a lot stronger in this direction than it is in this direction. There we go. That is one of our parts. And you can see we're able to maintain that super sharp point. Set that aside, and we'll talk about our fixture. So I have in front of me just a piece of 3/4 MDF with a sheet of the same thickness veneer, double-sided taped up above me. That's essentially my tape board. Put some shaper tape down, then I have this whole surface area to work on. What's holding it down is this Krylon Easy Tack. It's a repositionable adhesive, spray-on adhesive, and it's not a one-and-done type thing, but spritz it across this surface, let it tack up a little bit, and it will hold the veneer down just enough without tearing it to pieces when you try to get it back up.
Yeah.
And you can reuse it a couple times.
Yeah, you know, and especially if you're cutting in different areas, you can space, you know, some files over here, some files over there, and use it over and over. And you'll kind of feel when it's not holding. Just like, you know, put the veneer down, give it some pressure, and then, you know, kind of push it back and forth laterally. And if it moves, you know, it's about time to add some more. But most of the time, it'll go at least a couple.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really this is the stuff that makes this possible. This is the only thing me and Ramon found that even worked remotely well. And is just changes it all. Yeah.
Yeah. The next is the bit. So normally in origin land, we don't use downcut bits. Downcutting bits are really popular in CNCs and stuff like that because they're moving at a consistent feed. They're able to get rid of that dust. But with origin, often we're just packing that dust down into the cut that we're cutting. We find that it often is more dangerous than useful. So we don't recommend it always. Unless it's a 16th of an inch and you're cutting 42nd of an inch veneer, then it's perfect.
Yeah, because with an upcut bit, you're pulling the material up towards it, and with a downcut, you're pushing it down. And so we don't want to pull the veneer up at all. We want it to stay right where it is. And so the downcut bit will help force that veneer to stay down while you're cutting it and keep you from having failed cuts where you're cutting it over and over, and every time it's pulling it up or chipping out. So yeah, that one's a good one. I mean, the other thing to note, a little tip me and Ramon found, eventually one of these little pieces you cut is going to break or come loose. Just if you have enough space on the veneer, try to position it where if something does mess up, you have another one. Most of the the kits and stuff, they have enough extra where even if you have a couple mistakes, you can do that.
Right. Speaking of kits.
Yes.
Wanted to give a little shout out to Ramon. He did a pit project for Origin a while ago called the Shiprock Inlay, and he sells whole veneer packs with every color that you could need for that particular inlay.
Yeah. So this is the dyed veneer pack. I think there's a couple different ones that is set up for the Shiprock file that we did a couple years ago. So the file's on Shaper Hub, you get access to that, and then you can just buy the veneer from Ramon. It has all the right colors, or you can get your own. But these are cut for all the specific shapes, so you'll have enough. So yeah,
and we did a domestic colored one for the test, and today I was like, we got all these fun colors.
Yeah, let's do a fun one.
And do some fun colors. What else? 16th inch downcut.
The scrapers, having a good scraper that's flexible is important to getting it up. If you try to do it with something that's not as flexible, you'll definitely have more failures trying to get the material up. And then that little cleaning pick to get through, just to clean it out, because it's really nice to clean that up before you try to separate it with a knife. Otherwise, you also will have it pulling on the outside sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's the main stuff, I think.
It is. As I set up for this next cut, I am going to use a roller, just like a linoleum, some sort of roller to be able to apply pressure. And I'm going to make sure I have a nice tacky area. Right there, feels good. And apply that pressure.
Yeah, and then the one note you'll see if we look on the board here is Jake actually positioned it off of where the other cuts are, so that way the little cut channels that have already been cut a little lower than the veneer won't affect this one. If you cut too much on one of these tape boards, you're gonna have to flip it, change the top, but you have quite a bit of cutting before you get there, and if you get your depth pretty good, then you don't have to replace it as much.
All right, just adding to my original scan here so that I can see my new piece of veneer.
Yeah, and super nice when you can actually see the grain and you're picking, exactly where you want this file to go.
Now, before I place this, I wanted to plan this out a little bit. It helps to have an idea of what color is going to go where. So we just did a crude drawing. I can show that in the overhead. Crude drawing of the triangle, and imagine, okay, I have my 6 veneers, 6 different colors, kind of shades of each. I want to number what color is going to land where. That just kind of helps you plan out as you're placing down these files. There we go. So with that in mind, I'm going to cut my blue number 3. There we go. Now this part has 2 parts to it. It's got the main body here, and it has this tiny little piece right here. Take it from me, you're going to lose a couple of those little pieces, but it's okay. Just copy and paste, move it down. And and cut another one. Make sure that you apply pressure. It's got good adhesion. Here's another tip. Turn your vacuum off just for that tiny piece.
Yeah.
Because
not a lot of dust coming out of there.
it cut just fine. It was just as soon as I finished the cut, it got sucked up into the vacuum. Yeah. So I'm going to start there, vacuum off, and then carefully pluck it out and then move on. Goose, thank you so much. No, I did not multiply. And I did this multiple times when I was making the test in the first place. Okay. We're going to scale, multiply by 1.2. We'd be here for
twice as long.
Day. There we go. Another thing before I start cutting, you may notice that I'm not doing a roughing offset, a roughing and a finishing pass, which we normally encourage to do when cutting. Again, we're cutting such thin stock and such shallow depths that I don't really feel the need to do a roughing pass, and I don't want to risk it cutting loose on me without actually cutting this thing true to size.
Yeah, and you probably just want to be a little more careful in how you're driving it so these cuts will end up really pristine on the first go.
Yeah. Think about where you're starting and ending the cut path. Like I particularly like to start at the sharp corners, go around that corner, and so that I end on a straightaway, which is just less likely to add enough force on that little piece that's now loose for it to kick loose.
And you know, if you're struggling where they keep getting loose every time, one thing you could also do is don't cut all the way through. Just cut and leave a tiny little skin and then come back with a little knife and just cut that out. Yeah. That's another way if you're having struggle with like a very specific part.
All right. I'm going to buzz these out.
Oh, nice camera angle, Goose. So, okay, so there's the first one. And we'll see if that one comes out. Looks pretty good. You know, one of the things is when you're doing this, you kind of, as you're cutting, you need a spot to put everything because you will end up, where did that piece go? I knew I cut it, but it's no longer anywhere to be found. So finding a little, you know, bin or something to put all your actual cuts in is always nice. Now, we're going to talk about it shortly after this, but, you know, one of the things you'll notice is, you know, with marquetry, especially with Shaper Origin and CNC in general, is, you know, getting a marquetry piece that has sharp corners is somewhat impossible because of the nature of round bits and the nature of, you know, when you try to cut a corner, the bit can't fully cut into there. And we're going to talk a little bit about that shortly. Ramon figured out a really smart way to design these files so that you get a bunch of nice sharp corners. And this is something we really wanted to try with this one as like a very simple project, but explaining as many of those kind of complex things that come to really how you design this piece. So, you know, whether it's, you know, you're going to always be up against that rounding problem, but if you design the part smartly and break it into little pieces, you can get some really nice sharp corners.
Did you say smartly?
Yes.
Is that a word?
I don't know. It's a word now.
Nice.
Words aren't my strong suit.
Speaking
Jake, you know?
Speaking of that, I'm not sure if the pocket in this is round. Oh, yeah, it is. Great. Okay. So I think we're going to have to just ever so slightly round these by hand.
Yeah, sometimes you got to bring out the hand tools, you know?
Yeah. Which, like right now, while it's stuck down there, I'm just going to take that opportunity to chisel out the spot where the let's call it a tongue goes.
Yeah, because that inside corner can't get any sharper unless you were to break this into like 3 parts. And so, I'm trying to remember, there was a spot that we did this on. Yeah, maybe I'll bring this over to the big cam so we can see it right here. So you can see in the Shiprock one here, right about here, there's a point where 3 of them join, and this has a sharp corner, but because it's 3 parts, it doesn't matter, right? You're going to get a sharp corner because you have the different parts. If they were all one part, you wouldn't be able to have as sharp of a corner here. So breaking the design into multiple pieces will allow you to have a different look. All right. I like the blue. The colors are nice.
Right?
You know? It's like you don't,
a little retro.
When you're working with wood, you're not used to working with the colors like this normally.
Just chiseling that inside gap. The other thing that I glossed over is that we're doing a universal offset on all of these parts. So normally when we have a positive, let's say simplest terms, we have a circle that we're inlaying into something. We're going to cut that circle true to size. We're going to use negative offsets on the pocket. But when you have a bunch of parts that are coming together to then fit into a pocket, your tolerances start to stack up pretty fast.
Yeah,
so
you don't really want to make one of these triangles bigger than all the rest. Now you might at first start feeling like, oh, the fit's pretty good. I can change some offsets here and there, but as they all start to come together, it definitely will compound. Me and Ramon definitely had some issues where one of the keys is actually when you start this project and you're like, okay, I have my design, I know how things are going to fit. You really do need to figure out what that global offset you're going to use for everything is before you start cutting it all. And so that might mean cutting a few test pieces and just seeing how they fit. And then settling, in this case, we're settling on negative 0.02 of an inch. So somewhere in the 2 to 3 thousandths normally fits really well. But depending on your bit and a bunch of different factors, you might have to change it a little bit. So just do some test cuts and try to cut everything with the same offset at the end.
Yeah. All right, so now, on origin. Got that popped off there and just chiseled out the inside there so that it was sharp. Again, not much because we're using a 1/16 of an inch bit, which is giving us a 32nd inch radius.
Yeah.
Pretty minuscule. And it's veneer, so it's really easy to go through. So, hop into the break real quick before we cut the pocket. After the break, we're going to be cutting the pocket out of this panel.
Nice.
Some curly maple. Yeah. All right. So at this point, we can bring up the poll question. The question that we want to know from you today, in order to win or enter your name into the raffle at the end, is what is the hardest or most annoying part of digital design that you faced when you're designing for fabrication specifically? I know there's a lot of them. Maybe give us an example of something that you personally run into that you're like, yeah, that's been a pain point.
Yeah. Love to hear that.
Yeah.
Next up.
Yeah.
We got a studio update for you.
Yes.
So this just went out actually today. So a lot of people probably haven't even seen it. This is, if we go over to my screen, Goose, this is duplicate in place. And so if you've ever used Studio and you're kind of creating things that are offset from each other or moved from different elements, you can, every time you hit the duplicate button, it'll kind of shift that shape down into the right a little bit. And that's great in most cases because that helps you know, hey, there's another shape that was duplicated, and then you can move it to wherever you want. But in those cases where, like in this GIF here that we're looking at, I want to duplicate the shape and I want to just make it a little bigger, and I'm going to do that a couple times. Now you know that the position doesn't change and they'll all be in the same spot. So duplicate in place is here.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's
super
pretty cool.
excited for that one.
Really nice. So yeah, check that one out next time you log into Studio.
I want to remind everyone that we have our accessory discount happening right now. It ends tomorrow with February 21st. Ooh. So good, your last chance to get in on some 50% off access to all accessories.
Yep.
Whether it be bits, tape.
What's your favorite accessory right now, Jake?
I mean, I always go back to this, but I just can't get rid.
Nice.
This is such a crucial tool.
I'm pretty partial to the bit cleaner these days.
Yeah.
And the extra spindle. Those two are pretty powerful.
Of course. Yeah. Being able to spindle swap is an absolute game changer.
Speeds it up big time.
Yeah. So check that out. And then lastly, we are in Las Vegas next week at KBIS, the Kitchen and Bath Show. We're going to be in the Sugutsuni booth So if you happen to be at the show, come check us out. It's going to be Russ and Ben out there
Nice.
cutting door hinges.
Yeah.
Some, like
Come
big
say hi
old
to
door
Russ
hinges.
if you're in Vegas.
Yeah.
You know?
Cool. Well, in light of the fact that we are dangerously, actually, no, we're out. We're out of shop tours. So with that in mind, we're just going to sit here in silence for a moment.
Yeah.
And
think about not sending us your shop tour.
call to action, please send your shop tour. If you sent one and we haven't played it, send it again. Get to the top of the list. I would love to see them. And we always send something nice to anyone that we play the shop tour for.
And
so
where do they send that, Jake?
they send it to sessions@shapertools.com.
We prefer a landscape video,
Yeah.
you know, so that everybody can watch it on their computers, and send it in.
Around 3 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes, narrated.
Yeah, give us some narration. Tell us, some stories behind it.
Yeah.
It's always cool to see everybody shop. Big, small, doesn't matter. Dusty, clean. We haven't really
Does not
gotten a serious dusty shop tour yet.
The last one was Mike Coffee.
Yeah. So anyway, send it in, and we send you some swag if we play it.
Yeah, cool. All right, with that, I'm excited to cut this pocket. I'm going to lay down a little bit. I should have done this at the start of the break. Just a little bit more, because this is a kind of a curly piece.
And one note, the Easy Tack's great for keeping stuff down, but it's really not great for running Origin's base over the top. So if you look what Jake's doing, he's kind of covering up the tape plane area so that he can spray the area below it, but trying to keep it from going up the top there. Yep.
All right, that's all we're getting.
Oh, we got a nozzle problem.
Got a nozzle blockage.
And one of the nice things about the Easy Tack too is even if you have a little bit of a curly piece, when you start rolling it down, it'll get pretty good. Now, obviously, if your piece is really wavy, you need to veneer tame it beforehand and try to get it a little closer to flat. But Easy Tack's pretty good at keeping it nice and flat, and then that way when you transfer it over to your panel later, it'll be all good. Yeah, what tape is that in the middle, Jake?
This is veneer tape. It is a water-activated. It's really trippy stuff. You take a wet sponge, you swipe it along the area you're going to use, rip off your desired piece, lay it down, and as it dries, the glue sets, and it kind of contracts a little bit, so it actually pulls that joint together just a tiny bit. But the beauty of it is once you're done, you just take a wet sponge, wet it again, and it peels right up. So that is really handy for doing all this stuff. Of course, blue tape works as well. But yeah, I like this stuff. Okay, I think that's good.
I should have known that because I was helping out Adrian in the masterclass live last year,
Yeah.
and we used it for all of them.
Shout out Adrian Ferrazzuti.
Yeah,
He's the one that taught us this trick.
It was a pretty fun session. Striking and cutting all these pieces of veneer by hand, and then assembling a panel. Kind of all the basic steps of veneering marquetry.
All right, just doing a new scan. Getting my panel in there. Now we're cutting these things out individually, and then we're going to assemble the whole thing after the fact, put it in a clamping caul or a vacuum bag. But you can also just pocket, we did this one earlier, just pocket out that shape and inlay it into a panel that you've already made. So 2 different options. I kind of like this method, assembling it all and doing it at once. All right. I'm going to make a grid because I want to get everything. Let's see. It's kind of a blind grid, but that's all right. for our purposes. Because what I really care about is this center line. Now I'm going right in between where those two seams come together. That's what I want my center point to be. Beautiful. There's the pocket. And we need to scale. Same as before.
Got it this time.
Times 1.2.
Nice. Don't worry, Goose was going to have our back if we forgot again.
I hope so. All right. Nice and centered. There we go. We're going to glue this down to a panel and trim it up all afterwards anyways. But it's nice to have it centered, at least on that seam, because we did do a book match piece of curly maple.
Yeah, no, Jake, though, real quick, I was just thinking about this a little bit. That first 2 grid points are actually going to define this angle.
That's true.
If you really want it to be down the line, I would probably do a grid the other way, up and down first, because that will make sure that's right in the middle. Whereas if this is off by a little bit, and
if that's not 90.
If it's not 90, yeah. So I think actually we probably want to maybe redo it. You can check and see if it's close or not, but yeah, for people who are following along, when you make the grid, the first 2 points actually define kind of the main angle of the x-axis. Obviously, you can pick wherever you want it to be, but in this case, normally you would grid the front and then you would kind of grid the side. But in this case, because it's not 90 degrees from the middle to the bottom, then we're actually going to grid kind of in the reverse direction. So Jake's going to kind of start the 2 here, and you'll see it doesn't really care where you go. It'll just start the line vertical, and then he can pick the center point wherever he wants it to go. And now we're more guaranteed to be down that line accurately.
Nice.
Especially when you're trying to get a thing to line up with a book match panel, having it off by a half a degree or 1 degree really ruins the whole look.
You'll be able to tell.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get going.
Scaled it?
It's scaled. I still have my negative 0.002.
Nice.
I could cut that back to 0 and test fit. Never hurts. That's usually how we go about things. I'm going to say let's cut it to 0 and see how it fits.
Cool. So just to give you a reminder, the depth that Jake is cutting right now is 0.012 inches. So this is like really, really thin stuff. I'm hoping that it doesn't peel up when we do the second pass if we have to offset it more. But this is always nice to be able to cut less and then remove a little more material slowly. And that's just something you can do as many times as you want until your heart's content with the fit. It's kind of one of the greatest joys in Origin World is when you get that perfect joint and it can't get any better than that. Now, obviously, if you go too far, you can't put wood back, but you can always make a patch, fill it up, and recut it. So he's just using single plunge cut here and slowly driving around, and let's see how this fits. All right. So you can see here, just taking that little pick to kind of clear out the anything that's connected and just some of the sawdust that gets stuck with the Easy Tack, because it kind of clumps it together a little bit. A little dental pick or something will help out with that cleanup process. Okay. What do you think? Think it's going to fit?
I think
First
so.
time?
We can go ahead and remove this part, though. Save that for another inlay.
Nice.
Let's see here. All right, we got red and pink on the bottom. I like doing it here on this Easy Tack setup too, because it's going to hold things in place a little bit for me.
I like the numbering. It helps out a lot, you know, later.
Yeah. All right. So far, so good. But this is not where the issue will show itself. You'll run into it at the very end when you're trying to fit the last piece. So I think I can already tell. I mean, that's going to come together.
Oh, yeah, look at that.
That's kind of perfect. I'm just going to roll with it. These sharp corners really want to nestle in there.
Yeah, and this is one of the things that's so cool about this design here, that there's just so many sharp points that meet. And they look really striking once you get it finished. Don't forget, while we're in here, put those questions in the chat. After the show's over, we'll get to them in the live section. So make sure you get them in. And at the end, we'll have some prizes.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh, color looks nice.
Right? A little retro.
Yeah, I like it.
A little 80s throwback.
Kind of got some 80s, yeah.
Pink and blue was a real big thing back then. My dad had a pink and blue jet ski.
Oh, nice. I was thinking like this reminds me of like the jackets, you know, for skiing, you know.
Oh, he had a pink and blue onesie too for skiing. All right, so for these little tongues or tenons, we are saying if the purple is going across here, is going to be protruding through the blue or purple. We chiseled out those corners, so that should fit perfectly.
Now, Jake, with this, you've got to get all this off at some point. So you're peeling it up at once, or?
Yeah, I'm going to lay down my veneer tape after this is all done and peel the whole thing back up.
Okay, cool.
We have blue coming across, so blue goes in there. Oh, it's like snapping together right now. And pink comes across, so we'll do pink right here.
Oh, yeah.
Voila.
Looks awesome.
Super happy with that fit. Again, that is a negative 0.002 on everything, which you get a bunch of pieces that stack up to next to each other, so that multiplies for every surface. So at that point, I didn't actually need to take a negative offset on my pocket.
Yeah, and if it wouldn't have fit or it was too tight at this point, you would, take those back up, change your offset to a negative 1,000th, negative 2,000th, recut the inside and the outside, and then try it again.
Yep.
Yeah, nice.
There you go. Easy as that. This is a very geometric shape, but hey, you can make super organic, natural curvy objects. That's actually a lot easier and less heady, I would say, when cutting with Origin.
Yep.
Trace is a wonderful tool.
Yep, we've seen some cool veneer inlays with trace.
Just draw something.
Yep. There was one, I think, Rusty, a little leaf that was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, if you're not familiar, trace is a product that you can essentially draw whatever you want. Put this frame right here over the top of it, and then we have a web app with your phone that you take a picture of it, and then it'll convert that into a vector file for use on Origin or any other digital fabrication tool. And things like hand-drawn inlays and stuff are really a nice way to go about it. Is trace, you just draw it, take a picture, it's done.
Yeah. And if you're still trying to get sharp corners, just keep in mind you'll either need to bust out the knife or the chisel.
Yep.
Or
Or you might have to bust out that new duplicate in place studio feature so you can break up that shape with a bunch of shapeshifter actions.
Yeah, nice. Great. All right, that is it. I think we nailed it.
Nice.
Can't get past that fit.
I think if you want, we could show a few of the other examples that we had.
Oh yes, of course.
Before we wrap it up, and then we'll head over to Q&A. So I thought I would just share a couple of the things me and Ramon did back in the day, and then how we got here. So this
Where it all started.
Yeah. So this is the first project. Are we good, Goose? Okay. So I'm going to play, and you can kind of get a hint. So this is some of the cutting that he did. He did his logo in the end, but this is a massive 7-foot door that we did with multiple colors and this inlay that he drew. And so, this video walks through the whole process of how he did that, how he made the door, all the little steps that we went along to get there. It's quite a cool video. So check that one out if you're interested in seeing that one. That was the first one where we figured out the easy tack method. And then Ramon put together this shiprock one here, which, has all the steps. Really, the other video is a little more kind of like, let's show this cool project. This one's more like, hey, if you have Shaper Origin, how do we get this shiprock inlay that we showed you earlier? It's a 50-minute video that goes through all the tips and tricks, how to get files, ads. So check that one out. And then if we jump over to this one, this is kind of what we just went over today, but if you want to hear Ramon speak on it, you can go to his channel and see this one where he goes over essentially the Penrose Triangle that we went over today with a bunch of tips and tricks. If you've never seen Ramon's videos, he always wants to pull out a belt sander, show you some quick tips that you might not know, and they're quite fun. So yeah, check out the Shiprock inlay on Shaper Hub. It has all the files, a link to the video, and then we also now have the Penrose Triangle here. So check that out. And then Ramon has the veneers that are set for the colors and stuff on his website, so you can check those out. I think that's it.
Great. Thank you everyone so much for joining us.
See you in a couple weeks.
Take care.